First I'm going to talk about the components that I included in my egg car and the justifications for the materials that I used. So for my egg car, I used popsicle sticks, rubber bands, foam, cardboard, and cotton. So I used the popsicle sticks because they're quite sturdy and hard to break, and therefore I used them so that even after the car crashes, the cage that's made out of the popsicle stick would stay intact and protect the egg from smashing on the ground and breaking. When I was designing the cage, I made the popsicle sticks lean in slightly so that the egg would be tightly fit in the car, like between the popsicle sticks, and therefore it'll be harder for the egg to come out of the car. However, I made sure not to make the space too tight so that I would still be able to put the egg in easily. As for the rubber bands, I used them to hold the egg to the popsicle stick cage so that the egg wouldn't go flying out when the car crashed. So the rubber bands kind of acted as the seat belts of the car. Next, I used cardboard to make the sides and the bottom. The things that I made out of cardboard were important to my car since they were what everything is inside and on. However, the cardboard material itself didn't do much to keep the egg from crashing. Next, I used foam, which I put inside the cardboard sides and base. And I used foam because it's quite squishy and it is not hard. So I thought it would be the perfect material for the seat of the car where the egg would be sitting in. Finally, I used the cotton to put on the popsicle stick cage so that the egg would not be leaning on the hard popsicle sticks, and instead it would be leaning against a really soft cotton. As for the trial run and the modifications I made after my first trial, during the trial run, I learned that when the car crashes, the impact is so big that it throws the car into the air, and the car flips and turns and And since I only had a couple rubber bands on, the egg fell out of the car the first time that I tested it. And after the trial, I added a lot more rubber bands and made sure that the rubber bands were really tight so that they would hold the egg very well. Like I said before, I added more rubber bands just so the egg wouldn't slip out. And when I made the first version of my car, I put so much cotton in so that you could barely see the egg, and therefore I took some cotton out so that more of the egg would show, since in a real car the person is not completely covered. And in the first version, I also didn't make the popsicle sticks lean in, so I added that when I was making the final product. For the forces that are acting on the egg when it's going down, the first force that I thought of is Newton's first law, because Newton's first law says that an object will stay in rest or in motion until an unbalanced force is acted upon it. You can see this when the car is going down the ramp, because since there are no forces acting upon it when it's going down, it is in motion the whole time. And it is in motion until it crashes into the wall, which is the unbalanced force. The next force is acceleration. And acceleration is the rate of change of velocity, and can be a change in how fast the object is moving. We can see this when the car is going down, because the longer the car goes down, the faster it gets. So it speeds up, which is called positive acceleration. There's also a gravitational pull on the car, which is what makes it go down the ramp in the first place when I let it go. The next force is speed. The speed of the car is how fast the car is moving. So the speed of every car would be different depending on how much mass each person put on the car. Other things that affect the speed of the car is the length of the ramp and how much the ramp is inclined. Kinetic energy is a form of energy that results from an object's movement. Every object has kinetic energy, and the faster an object moves, the more kinetic energy it has. So as the car accelerates and goes down the ramp, it also starts to have more and more kinetic energy. For the forces that are acting on the egg during the collision, the first force is Newton's first law, which states that an object will stay in rest or motion until an unbalanced force is acted upon it. So if a car crashes but the person inside is not wearing a seatbelt, the person would keep going the speed that the car was going before it stopped, so the person could fly out of their seat, and if the impact is big enough, they could fly out of the car. In this case, the egg would also fly out of the car since there is no unbalanced forces acting upon it to stop its motion. The seatbelt, or in this case the rubber bands, acts as the unbalanced force for the egg when the car crashes. Therefore, when the seatbelt or rubber bands are used, whoever or whatever is in the seat of the car would not maintain its state of motion and stop with the car. The next force is Newton's second law. Newton's second law says that for something to accelerate, an object must have mass and you must apply force to the object. Newton's second law applies to the egg car crash because when it crashed, the wall applied force to the car, which changed the car's acceleration. And the third force is Newton's third law, which says that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. The force that the car exerted on the wall when it crashed was as same as the force that the wall exerted on the car during the crash. It is because of this law that a car gets damaged during a car crash, because since both the wall and the car are exerting the same force on each other, both the car and the wall would get damaged. I think my collision was mostly successful, but it wasn't completely successful either. Even though my egg did not break, the car that I built did fall out of the car that was provided. Even though my car came off, the egg itself did fall out of the seat and my car was not damaged at all. If I were to make modifications, I would build a roll cage around the popsicle stick cage so that when the car falls on the ground would have no chance of touching the egg and the ground would only touch the roll cage. I think I would also get something stronger than rubber bands to hold the egg and cage together. I would have also made it a little bit smaller so that my car would fit better in the provided car and it would not fall out. However, overall, I think I did pretty well since the egg did not break or come out of the car.